Yeah. All right. Today, we are going to, same as I did yesterday, very similar. I taught you how to do conversions. And I used the metric system as my method, right? I wasn't really teaching the metric system. If I just wanted to teach you the metric system, I would have done it a lot easier. But I try to teach you the system you're going to use forever. Same thing's true here. I'm going to teach you how to solve some problems. Okay? Don't have to write that down. I'm going to teach you how to solve some problems. And I'm going to use density as my way of doing it. Now, density, you've already done density problems, haven't you? You did them in the lab the other day. It's a really easy formula. But I'm going to show you what I want you to know for every time we do problems. You know, at the end of the year, you're going to get this formula card. Because we're going to, in every chapter, you're going to get multiple formulas. Not too many, 2 or 3 per chapter. And then at the end, for the final, I don't want to make you memorize them all. So I give you a card that has all of them on it. Mr. Schrader in physics has already given you a formula card, I'll bet you, and you're already writing formulas on it. Okay? Well, every one of those formulas is going to get more complicated as the year goes on, but you're going to use this system I'm going to teach you right now, today. You're going to use this system to do all of those problems. Okay? It's basically 3 steps. All right? So this is, in your notes, I'm going to call this, I'm going to call this Roman numeral 5, solving problems. It's not just about density. It's about any kind of problems that you're going to see. All right? Now, 3 steps. Again, just like in the conversion factor ones, the first step is so easy a monkey could do it. All I want you to do is, although honestly I say that, in effect, it turns out that it's one of the biggest mistakes you make. All I wanted you to do in the conversion factors was write down the given information, right? Write down whatever was given in the problem. That's exactly what this first step's going to say this time. I want you to write down the given information. That seems awfully easy. But you do have to check something when you're doing that. Check the units. Kind of like I taught you about yesterday. The units have to be the same if you're in the same problem. For example, I can't very well take 10 feet minus 2 inches and get 8 feet, right? If you take 2 inches away from 10 feet, you don't get 8 feet, do you? Okay. Well, if you've got the same thing being measured in an equation, and these equations are going to get large. I mean, we're going to have equations like this: V2 over P2 over T2 equals T. V1 P1 over T1, and PV equals mass over more mass RT. We're going to get some long equations, some difficult equations. If these things are measuring, anything that's being measured in here, especially we have V2, P2, we have V's in more than one place, they have to be in the same units. So that's the first step. Write down the given, pick it out of the problem, and put it into on the side of your paper. Now, next thing you're going to do, find the formula. You know, in this chapter, there's only going to be one major formula, although there are 2 other ones we talked about with percent error and deviation. You're not going to mix them up. There's only one really major formula in this chapter. What is it? You've already seen it. What did I say it was? Come on. What? What is it? Somebody? It's the only formula you've seen in the lab just the other day. Density. D equals what? No, it wasn't V over M. It was M over V. But okay, that's the only one you're going to have to know in this chapter. Not to be, of course, you do still have to know the percent error one, and you have to know the deviation one, but they're not going to be. You're not going to confuse those. All right. The next thing you do after you write the correct formula, D equals M over V, you will then rearrange it and solve it. That's the 3 steps, and that's the end of the notes. There's no more notes. There's examples from now on. Okay, you have 3-step procedure. Pretty simple stuff. Now, the reason for this, reason I'm giving you this procedure, very important. A lot of times you'll get word problems, SATs, PSSAs, keystones, word problems where, you know, in the middle of the word problem, you just stop reading. Like I have no idea how to solve this. You know, a train travels 40 miles an hour due east for 10 minutes, and then it goes north for 5 minutes at 27 miles an hour, and then it turns west, and then at the end they ask you what the price of tea in China is. And you have no idea what they're doing. Well, there is a way around that. When you get word problems, you don't try to read the whole thing at once. You try to pick out the information. You try to organize it. And that's the first thing I'm trying to do, write down the given information. I'm going to put these simple density problems into word problem format. Okay, so if I ask you a problem like this, find the density if 10 milliliters of a liquid has a mass of 5 grams. That's not a very complicated word problem. However, we'll start off small here. Write that down. People just don't like word problems. They don't like scenario problems. They become lost in the middle of them. The key to not getting lost is to have a system. This is your system, and it will work for any problem. Physics, Chem 1, Chem 2, AP, Bio, although there's not many math problems in Bio. All right, math class. Any kind of word problem, you do this first. Write down the given information and check the units. Let's do that first for this guy. What's my given information here? I mean, there's 3 variables for density. Again, what are the 3 variables? Density, mass, and volume. So I'll write down to the side here D, M, and V. Okay, write those down to the side. Pick it out. What's the density in this problem? Do you see it up there?
10.
I'm glad I heard that. It happened in the air class. Is 10 milliliters a density?
No.
No. Read the first 2 words. Find the density. So what do you think the density is in this problem?
You don't know.
The unknown, exactly. It's the unknown. Now I want to point something out to you people. That 10 milliliters, it doesn't say what it is. But you should know it. And you would know it if this weren't in metric units. You should know what 10 milliliters is measuring because of its units. If I tell you I'm 6'2", what am I talking about? My height. If I say I'm 190 pounds, what am I talking about? My weight. I never said my weight is 190 pounds, but you knew what I was talking about. Because this is metric, and you're not used to grams and milliliters or density grams per milliliter, you're not used to those units. You don't recognize that immediately as a volume. And some of you, I heard you say it a minute ago, wanted to call it the density. Milliliters is a unit of volume. What's my mass? 5.0 grams. And what's my volume then? 10.0 milliliters. Okay, good. That's your first step. And we already made a mistake. You all heard it in here, a couple people wanted to put 10, and we already made a mistake in that first step. And that's what happens. How did you guys used to solve problems like this that are word problems? I'll tell you how you solve them. You grabbed your calculator and started throwing numbers around. Maybe I'll multiply, maybe I'll divide them, maybe I'll add them, maybe I'll subtract them. And then you hoped you got it right. That's how you solve problems. Okay, and sometimes you did. And sometimes intuitively you were able to figure it out. This is the system you got to not only use, but you got to show it to me or you're not getting any points. Write this down on the side. Okay, got to show me that. All right, next step. Find the correct formula that relates all these variables together. Well, I just already said it. What is it? D equals what? M over V. Good. If D equals M over V, do I need to rearrange that in any way, shape, or form to solve for this guy? No, he's already set up perfectly. I'm looking for D. It's set up that way. Nice. The next 2 examples I'm going to do, what do you think I'm going to do in the next 2 examples? I'm going to solve for M and I'm going to solve for V, right? But right now it's set up the right way. I plug my numbers in. That's the 3rd step. Rearrange the formula and solve. Don't have to rearrange it. I'll just plug in my numbers and solve it. Plug and chug, as they say. 5.0 grams over what? 10.0 milliliters. Is everybody happy with that? Now, I made this first one so easy you don't even need a calculator. What's 5 over 10? And don't say 1/2. 0.5. Why? Write this down. I should say don't write this down. Why is that a wrong answer still? There's no unit. Don't and something else. Significant figures, which is another thing I was disappointed about with your worksheets. Remember that last one? That had most everybody got an answer of 1232 for that answer, the last one on the sheet yesterday, right? What should have it been? Did anyone round that off to the right number of significant figures? No. Now, I didn't take off for it this time, but I will on this sheet today. Okay? All right. 0.5, what should it read? 0.50. You know why? Because he's got 2 significant figures and he's got 3. The rule says least number of significant figures, which is 2, so it has to be 0.50. And what are my units?
Grams per milliliter.
Grams per milliliter. Good. That's the correct answer. That's how you do it. All right? Well, that seemed easy enough. Let's try a different version of the same kind of problem here. Try that one. Find the mass of 0.025 liters of a substance if its density is 5.0 grams per milliliter. Now for this guy, you're going to find a couple of little, every one of these is going to have a slightly different twist to it. But the thing is, they're all going to be solved exactly the same way. What will I do first? What will I write down first? The given, sure. D, oops, sorry. D, M, and V. Right? Look carefully. In this problem, what's my density? Nikki, what do you think? Good. She read all the way to the end. You know what a lot of people do on these problems, especially longer ones? First number they come across, they want to throw it into the first thing they got written down. She read and she saw it. It says density is 5.0 grams per milliliter. Good. What's my mass? Maddie. What's that? Find the mass. Good. She read also. And of course, there's only one thing left, and it doesn't say it's the volume, but we know liters is a unit of volume anyway. 0.025 liters. Okay. We are not done with this first step yet. Remember, the first step said write down the given information and check the units. Are my units okay? No. I've got liters here and I've got milliliters here. I can't subtract inches from feet. I've got to convert them to the same units. So same thing here. What did we just do for the last 2 days? We learned how to do conversions. Let's convert my liters to milliliters. How will I do that? What'll go on the bottom here, Bo? Liters. What's going to go on the top, Zach? You. Milliliters. All right. Converting liters to milliliters. Who's bigger, a liter or a milliliter? A liter. So I can fit 1,000 milliliters into 1 liter, right? Now, do I know how many places I'm going to move it? Do I know which way I'm going to move it? Sure. How do I know how many places I'm going to move that decimal? How many zeros? 1, 2, 3 zeros. Where is that 1,000? Is it the numerator or the denominator? Is he making them bigger or smaller? What do you think? I'm multiplying him by 1,000. Am I going to make it bigger or smaller? If rabbits multiply, do you get more of them or less of them? More. You get bigger. It's going to be a bigger number. So this is 25 milliliters, okay? See, the reason I set this up like this, guys, and it's something you guys just don't do. You know what some of you will want to do? And it just drives me crazy. At the end of the year, you'll still be doing it. You're going to memorize, if it's on the top, you move it to the right. And if it's on the bottom, you move it to the left. I actually saw somebody write that on their paper. I think it was Emily. It's an amazing thing. It's like, it's supposed to be common sense. It's supposed to be common sense. Think about it. Would anyone not know this? Would anyone not know that 4 times 1/2 versus 4 times 2? Right? Anybody not know the difference between those two? What's the difference between those two? Here, the 2 is in the denominator. So what are you doing? Making this guy bigger or smaller? Smaller. Half of 4 is 2. Here, the 2 is in the numerator. What am I doing? Making the guy bigger or smaller? Bigger. The answer is 8. All right? So if the thousands up here or if the hundreds up here, you're making it bigger not because you memorize top, right, bottom, left, but because it makes sense. Because it makes common sense to do it that way. You guys will find something to memorize in almost everything. All right, anyway, back to my problem here. I got to erase this thing for a second. All right. Okay, I've only done the first step. What's the next step here? What do I do next here? Ellie. You can read. What does it say? No, I can't rearrange anything yet. I haven't written it down. What's the second step say? Yeah, what's the correct formula? D equals M over V. Everybody good with that? D equals M over V? Now, what do I have to do to that formula? I have to rearrange it. I want everybody to look at this because I was kind of, I don't know. I was disappointed in one respect and kind of happy in another. Can you do the algebra, the rearranges? What will I do to both sides if I want to get M, solving for M by himself? What will I do to both sides?
Multiply by V.
Exactly. I'll multiply both sides by V. Does everybody see why? If I multiply this side by V and this side by V, V cancels, and what do I get? I get V times D equals M. See it? All right, good. Now I simply throw my numbers in. If V times D equals M, all right, and that's my equation, I'll just rewrite it up here. M equals V times D. Then M equals V, which is 25 milliliters, times D, which is 5.0 grams per milliliter. Right? What do I get for that answer? Again, you can do that in your head. I purposely made the first one. God bless you. Purposely made this first one. God bless you. I purposely made this first one. Stop it. Purposely made this first one easy. You don't need a calculator. All right. So what would 5 times 25 be? And if people who say, "Oh, no, I need a calculator," do you have 5 quarters? How much money do you have if you have 5 quarters? Right. So 125. But why is 125 wrong? 2 reasons. 2 reasons 125 is wrong. What's one good reason 125 is the wrong answer?
Significant figures.
Yes. What should he be? 130. I'm waiting for someone to say 13. Right? That was the way we would have done it when I was playing poker last week, right? 130. The milliliters cancel, leaving you with grams. So that's the other reason why it's wrong. It didn't have its units. But that's the correct answer, 130 grams. Okay? All right. Time for the last example. There you go. Copy that guy there. It says find the volume if 41.5 grams of the substance has a density of 2.8 grams per milliliter. Now this one should be very easy. Yet there's one thing that you will make a mistake on, that you're not realizing it until you do it. So I don't want you to work ahead on this one. I want you to do it with me here. We'll start off the same way we have been. We'll write down the given information. D, M, V. What's my density in this problem here? Becca.
2.8 grams per milliliter.
Everybody good with that? 2.8 grams per milliliter? What's my mass in this problem here? Ben.
41.5.
41.5 grams. Good. Notice there are grams here, there are grams there. I don't have to do any metric conversions. That's nice. What about my volume? What does the volume have to be, Ronnie? Exactly. It's the unknown. So I'm ready for my next step. My next step is to write the correct equation. D equals M over V. And here is where I want you to do something. I want you all to rearrange that equation and solve it in terms of v only. In other words, when you're done, I want you to tell me, not the numbers, no numbers. I want you to say v equals whatever in terms of m and d. Okay? Do that right now. I'm going to come around. I'll take a look and see how well you did. Kind of like I did with the rounding off thing. I'm hoping to get more right than I got in the rounding off. So it's just simple algebra. You're solving for v. That's what we're looking for in this problem, right? We want to find volume. So rearrange that in terms of m and d without plugging the numbers in. And tell me what v will be when you rearrange it. Let me see. Have it written down. Okay. What's yours? Okay. So far we've gotten two answers, two different answers. Okay. Okay. What's yours? Three different answers. Three different answers. Okay. Where is it? No, I specifically said no numbers in terms of v, m, and d. Do it, because that's wrong anyway. Okay. Well, this class, you win a prize. You are worse than the other class. Your algebra skills are worse. I saw three possible answers out there, which you'd expect. All right, here are your three answers. Okay. I'm going to erase these in a second. When you rearranged it, I saw v equals d over m, v equals m over d, and v equals m times d. It could be d times m. It doesn't make any difference. M times d or d times m. They're the same thing. Saw all three, and I saw more of the wrong answer in this class than I saw in the other one. So just to warn you, you're going to have to work. What's the correct answer? Well, let's see. How many of you had this one? It was more than just Emily, so please raise your hand. I saw it in at least 3, 4, or 5 places. How many had this one? It was more than those two people, but okay. How many had this one? Again, I think there was about 3 or more of these. Most of you did have that one, which is the correct answer. Okay? All right. Let's see how. Let's see what happened, what went wrong there. Okay? Watch. Now, obviously, everyone, the people who got it right don't really need this. And you know what else somebody's thinking? I'm sure a lot of you are thinking this. Well, can't you just throw the numbers in? That's what Ben wanted to do. It's what almost everybody would have done. All right? Just throw the numbers in and start plugging them into your calculator. Why not just do that? Well, because remember those other equations I had up here a little while ago? You can't just do that every time. There are times when you can't. It's too complicated to just throw numbers around. You've got to rearrange it in terms of algebra and figure it out. So let's rearrange this guy in terms of the algebra. What are my rules? My rules are very simple. I've got to get v by himself, but I've also got to get him out of the denominator. Most of you forgot about that part. Most of you got rid of the m immediately, but you forgot that v was in the bottom. He was in the denominator. So I've got to first multiply both sides by v, in which case I get v times d equals m. And then, to solve for v, what will I do to both sides to get v by himself? I'll divide by d. You see it? D will cancel, and sure enough, I get v equals m over d. See that? That's how you get it. Most of you try to do it in one step, which it is possible to do. But you have to be careful. You have to remember the v is actually in the denominator, not in the numerator. So most of you solved for was 1 over v equals this. Okay. So there's your equation. If v equals m over d, let's just plug all of our stuff in. My m is 41.5 grams. My d is 2.8 grams per milliliter. Finish that up. What are you going to get? You get a big long answer on your calculator, don't you? Do it. Get your calculators. This is the only one you had to use a calculator for. You're going to get a number to, it's going to obviously be too long. Where do I round it off? You ever have to ask that question? No. Where are you going to round it off? Give me the calculator answer once you do it there. Becca, did you do it? What do you got?
14.82142857.
Okay. So it's this big, long number. It's a big, long, ugly number. What do you think the correct answer is? Trent.
14.8.
He thinks it should be 14.8, which would be 3 significant figures or 1 decimal place, and he's not using the right rule either way. What's the least number of significant figures used in the calculation? 2. How do I round him off to 2 significant figures? He'll just be 15. And what happened to my units? What happened to my units here?
The grams cross out.
Yeah, the grams will cancel and leave you with
Milliliter.
milliliter. And there you have it. Okay? Now, I got a worksheet you're going to work on.